You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Today we are very fortunate to welcome Chris Burkard to our show. Chris is an accomplished explorer, photographer, creative director, speaker, and author. Traveling throughout the year to the furthest expanses on our planet, Burkard captures stories that inspire humans to consider their relationship with nature while promoting the preservation of wilderness and wildlife. His work has been published by National Geographic Explorer, ESPN, Men's Journal, and almost every surfing magazine known to exist. His clients include Apple, Sony, Land Rover, REI, and Toyota. Today, we're going to concentrate on the photographer aspect of Chris's work. We're going to talk with Chris about how he chooses his subjects and locations, how he decides which gear he's going to be bringing, what lenses he's most comfortable with, as well as his post-production techniques, and I hope we can take a deep dive into a few of the more well-known images to find out how they were created. Welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast, Chris Burkard.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. That was quite an intro.
You like that, huh? By the way,
I don't know if I'm worthy of all those accolades, but definitely try to live up to that.
What we were planning on doing is we were gonna actually record the show while sitting out on the ledge outside the office window with a fire engine spraying water on us, just so you'd feel at home. You know?
Yeah, you should. It would definitely enhance the mood, I think.
I mean, the temperature needs to drop about 30 or 40 degrees.
That's true. Yeah. It's only like 60 degrees at 70. It has to be a lot colder, so maybe it wouldn't work for you.
So what is the coldest you've ever worked in? Can you put a number on that?
That's a good question.
I mean, what? That's an interesting question, because the reality is, I think for me, a lot of these experiences swimming around in an Arctic Ocean somewhere, trying to shoot surfing, they're really brutally cold. But at the same time, I think, there's parts of Minnesota that are way colder, so yeah. To each their own, really. I think what it is, it's not so much about the cold. Like, it's never like, oh, I've worked in 20 below or I've worked in 30 below. It's how long are you willing to subject yourself to those places? That's the difference, because with the right clothing and the right attire, anybody can be comfortable in those conditions. When you're shooting in the water and you're shooting surfing, the critical thing is that you're diving under waves and you're actually in a fairly warm state, because the ocean is never going to drop below 32. Right. So you got to think about this. The ocean is balmy compared to the air, which at times in these places when it's booming offshore wind and really, really howling, the wind can be like -10, -20 with wind chill. And at that point, that's where like your lips and face and all the exposed pieces of your body that are above the water, those just get chilled to the bone. And I've had pretty bad like onset of hypothermia, and I've lost a lot of nerve. I've had a lot of nerve damage in my hands and parts of my face from exposing myself to those conditions for too long. And I would say it's more just stubbornness than it is any type of creative or, necessarily altruistic pursuit that's forced me to be in those conditions for a long time.
Well, just on that thought there, can you think of any moment where staying out past the point of where you should have stayed out got you that photo that you really wanted or needed? Or is it generally one of those things like, I had it in the first 10 minutes, but I
need a hot chocolate.
I would venture to say, to be totally honest, that within those first 5 minutes, I've probably gotten what I've needed.
Yeah.
Or not 5 minutes, but like if I'm out in the water for an hour and a half, and that last half hour is literally the most blood curdling, excruciating pain I've ever experienced, I probably didn't get anything good at that point.
I know what my limits are. 5 minutes just seem like 10 hours to me out there. I don't know.
It does. It really does.
I mean, just as a comparison, I think I'm a big shot because I put my top down when it's 24 degrees in my car. I'm looking at you swimming around with icebergs around you, and I'm saying I'm just a wuss.
Well, that's just the truth of the matter. Is like it's a harsh reality that this is kind of what you end up experiencing in these places. Is you end up experiencing some sort of visceral engagement with the landscape that I think I think creates better stories, but not necessarily better images. And what you find is that the moment that you start to get in somewhat hypothermic or whatever, you are not taking great pictures at that point. It's survival mode. You're not thinking creatively or anything like that. You know what I mean?
Do you monitor the weather where you go? I imagine you have to, because you go to some places where, it could just flip on a dime and you're in trouble all of a sudden. I would assume.
I mean, that's a part of it. You have to always be cognizant of not only the conditions, but of just like how your body's reacting, because some days you're feeling great and some days you're feeling really, really not great. And it can be about how much sleep did you get? What did you eat? It's kind of an odd part of photography to even talk about or consider, because usually people are just like, wait, what are you talking about? How does your diet or all these things? But when your job isn't kind of be immersed in these situations, you have to be usually just as capable as the athlete in some capacity.
Absolutely. Yeah, no doubt. And like you were saying, I mean, when you start to be aware of your conditions to the point that it's affecting things, creativity kind of goes out the window. I mean, it's survival, like you said, survival takes over, or other aspects. Sure. A lot of your images, whether they're adventure shots or even some of the commercial work, seem to depict a kind of a lone figure, tiny by comparison to the vast and the gorgeous landscapes that they're placed in. This big figure, small figure, big landscape. Is it fair to say that this provides an insight into your views on nature? I mean, is it simply?
This is a great question. It's a really funny thing. I think nowadays this is obviously an awesome trend in photography to kind of bring context to the image and scale to the subject and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth of the matter is that when I started in photography, I was shooting surfers this was my career as an action sports photographer, was shooting for the magazine. And so I was taking these athletes to these amazing locations, or vice versa. They were taking me. And, one thing you'll know about surfing is that you're in some of the most beautiful arenas in the world, natural arenas. And so my choice wasn't so much to like include a subject into the landscape, because I was shooting the subject. It was more about including a landscape into my subject, or pulling back and revealing a landscape around my subject. So this is how I was trained. This is how I grew up. I was always shooting a subject, an athlete, whether it's climbing or surfing or whatever. And when you think about those sports, you're not like necessarily, in a situation where you're just like, oh, I'm gonna, bring somebody along to hopefully place them into my photograph. It was just natural and it makes sense.
So what you're actually saying is that what you're really doing is you're taking environmental portraits.
I would say that that's a really big part of it. To be honest, is I'm trying to give the viewer context to the beauty of these places that are I think so amazing. And it was a trend-setting thing. It was a trend-setting thing, but it was also at the time a very new thing. If you're familiar with surf photography from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s, a lot of it was 600 millimeter from the beach, tight action, yada yada yada.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
But as you look at the evolution of action sports, from motocross to climbing to what people are more and more shooting more pulled back and showing these incredible locations that before you're like, well, why wouldn't you have naturally gravitated to show that anyway? Because it was not the trend of the era. It wasn't what the magazines wanted.
Did you ever get any pushback on that, even in the beginning of your career, where they're like, listen, we want the tube, we want the surfer, we want the facial expression, and you're like, and you said no.
And that's an amazing emerging thing that certain people do that really well. They shoot tight, beautiful. That's just never been my forte, probably because I've grown up in an area where landscapes are always king, and I had close access to national parks, and I was inspired by the work of Michael Fatali and Ansel Adams and a lot of Edward Weston and a lot of people who were primarily landscape photographers by trade. And so that work influenced me heavily.
I was going to say there is a tradition, especially in 19th century Western photography, of they place that that one individual way in the top of the mountain, and you can barely see them, but it gives you some scale, and I think a lot of that was done for scale.
It also adds a human element to it, because I think people relate to photographs in which people are in them. I think if you were to take the same photograph with and without a person, I think most people would prefer the one with the person in it just because they could relate to it more. It's just a human element.
I agree. I think that and to be honest, I really cherish the human experience. I really cherish the opportunity to relate to things and to provide people or my viewer an opportunity to relate. And I think that regardless of the fact that some of the things I photograph are totally unrelatable, I think that when you see a person or a subject or a sense of scale, you can in some way connect to it.
Something I'm curious about. I looked at a lot of your work and I read a lot of your little pieces that are out there in the videos. And according to...
I'm sorry about that.
according to your site, you basically gave up on everything like at age 19, said, I'm going to be a photographer. This is what I want to do. And you're living out of a car for a while. And your whole life is about taking pictures and pursuing adventure. And that's how you got to where you are today. And you're no longer living in a car. You actually have a large van that you're living out of now, I think. No, your studio is absolutely beautiful, but you've built an enterprise around this little dream you had when you were 19. And now when you started off, it was basically you were shooting your pictures that you wanted to do, and that ultimately got you to a point where you now have sponsors and commercial accounts that pay for all of this and make all of this possible, and you're still able to play, which is pretty cool. How much of your current workload, as far as assignments and traveling, are you generating, and what percentage of it is being generated by your clients saying, hey, we have a good idea? Or are they saying to you, what ideas do you have? How's it working these days?
I would say one of the downsides to my work is that I really don't travel to places for holiday or for any type of vacation, or even personal projects. If I have a personal project that I want to make happen, I just like everybody else, I find a commercial client or some type of somebody to come in and support that project, whether it's a film or a book or whatever. And so I've luckily gotten myself into a position where my clients that I work with, and there's been a laundry list of them, usually are adhering to my advice when it comes to where should we go shoot this, what should we shoot, where, and what is the the goal in mind, et cetera, et cetera. And so I really aim to kind of bring that to the table. I really aim to share with them my insight in the sense of what I've learned from utilizing tools like social media to garner a greater understanding of what the general public wants. And so one of the worst things that can happen as a photographer is to be hired simply because you have a camera and can shoot it. That's the worst. There's nothing worse than that. And so I've spoken, I've preached this from the rooftops. Like, you will only bring back the work that you promote. You will only bring back the work you promote. So if you're a fledgling wedding photographer that really wants to shoot motocross or vice versa, and I use those analogies because they are so different, but people are out there that want to do that. If you are not investing into your own career to shoot stuff that you want to eventually do for a living, you will never book that work. No client is just going to be like, oh, I saw on your Instagram, you're a great portrait photographer, but I just had this idea that you might want to shoot underwater photography. They're never going to know, because people are so afraid to kind of take a step back from whatever their cash cow is or whatever they feel comfortable. And so for me, I've really been cognizant of only putting out the work that I want to bring back. Yes, I've shot everything you can imagine, from beer campaigns on the beach in Mexico to, technology with, the Apple iPad, blank, and all kinds of stuff for every commercial client you could envision. But I don't show you that on these channels. I don't put that front and center on my website. Yes, it's available. And if clients want to do a deep dive, they can see it. But I think there's such an importance nowadays to what you put out into the world is what you're going to bring back.
Yeah, but on that same point, haven't you ever had anybody call you up or contact you saying, I see what you do, these environmental portraits, this exotic, extreme travel kind of stuff. What my product is totally unrelated to that, but I like the way you think and I like the way you see. What can you do for this? Here's what we do. What ideas do you have? Has anyone ever approached you that way?
All the time.
Oh, so you do get work that's unrelated to what you're showing.
But unrelated is a far cry. That's a different thing. They're not saying, I love the wild locations and the places that you shoot. Do you want to come into my studio and shoot on a white seamless my product? No, they usually want to infuse their product into these locations. So again, if I'm the guy that has been to Iceland 39 times, I've been there for a laundry list of reasons. I've directed, Super Bowl TV commercials there. I've shot Apple campaigns, 2 of them there. I've been there for multiple surf editorial trips, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Point being is that because of my experience and because I've put my work out there, other opportunities have come, but they're still rooted in the same mentality that people want to go to X location and now infuse the new Jeep Wrangler or whatever that might be. Right.
Gotcha.
So yeah, I get inquiries a lot, and that's a big part of my business, but it's still all built into that whole process of the fact that like, I know where my specialties lie. And I think, it's a very easy connection to make, to realize like, okay, well, I could see how my product could fit into one of the projects that Chris is doing, and or one of the places that Chris has been.
Have you ever taken an assignment or turned down an assignment that was offered to you because it was just a little bit too far out of your comfort zone? I'm not saying that you don't go out of it, but is there anything that came up?
That's a great question. That's a great question. And yes, I have turned down a lot of assignments. I've turned down a lot of assignments because morally, they don't sit right with me, or I've turned down a lot of assignments because here's one like really great lesson that I've realized, over the last decade and a half, shooting this stuff, is that you often have this concept that there's this company, this one brand, the creme de la creme, right? The biggest, best, baddest in the business that you would love to work for. You'd love to put your name behind. And then all of a sudden you book that job with them and you realize, I can't even, I'm under, NDA. They don't want me to tell anybody that I've worked for them. They're not going to put my name on any of the images. I'm not really shooting work that's inspiring me, and the day rate kind of sucks. So all of this stuff you do for them, although it's a great stroke for your ego, and it's great to have in your portfolio that you could show clients privately, it doesn't really benefit you in the end, as opposed to like maybe client B, who's like a little smaller, but they're really excited for you to shoot it. They want to put your name all over it. They want to promote that you did it. They're giving you total creative freedom, and they're paying you more. I think that sometimes we have this sort of, we put companies up on a pedestal, or we have expectations of what it's going to be like to shoot for so-and-so, and it's not. And I think that what I've realized, just to answer your question about, if I've turned down work, I mean, I really try to evaluate, am I wanting to work for this brand because I think is it actually going to benefit me? Like, what's actually going to benefit me in the long run? Is it the brand who is going to grant me the exposure that I feel like I deserve, or is it the brand who just wants me to pick up a camera and shoot it because I have a camera, right? So that's just a larger version of that same principle.
What about on the flip side of that? Have you turned down a shot or an assignment of some sort just based on the danger level, or the physicality level,
or the technical level, or something? That's really what I was going for.
Yeah, I was supposed to go shoot a volcano in Nicaragua as a part of this big project that was really cool and had a lot of awesome people on board, and they eventually did it. But the reason I turned it down wasn't because it was too unsafe or anything. It just there just wasn't, the ducks weren't in a row.
Right.
And I don't know what to tell you. I go over a lot of this stuff with like my agent, like, is this a good idea? Is this not? I'll go over with my wife, I'll go over it internally. And I've never turned down a job because it felt too dangerous. It just didn't feel like if I'm going to be giving that type of risk to a job like this, I want to make sure it A, pays well, B, brings the right types of images back so that I can use those to garner more work.
So what percentage of the assignments that you run by your wife for approval, does she roll her eyes around, but you still take it?
Are you kidding me? She rolls her eyes at every single one, and I'm like,
somebody has to be an adult there,
yeah, I'm going to go paragliding through the desert for like 10 days or, I mean, she's like, okay, well, grateful we have life insurance.
Yeah, right. Is the policy up to date? Right. Gotcha. So with all the stuff you're doing, can you put a number on how many days you're out in the field, per month or I know it probably
I would
varies,
say about 6 months out of the year, maybe a little more.
6
maybe
months
like
you're shooting?
six to eight. There's been some hard years where like I've been promoting a film and I've been on tour with a film, and as a photographer, everybody knows, that there's years where you're really promoting something you're doing, and that takes a lot. That's kind of like an investment year.
Yeah, of course.
Oh, sure.
I always tell people like, yeah, it's this is a year where you're investing back into yourself. So you're putting time into your own work so that the next year you can hopefully benefit from that work. And years that I've promoted a film and I've done 80 to 100 film screenings, I was gone for 9 months out of the year. And that was really hard, super hard, but it also was just something I had to do. Right. And I think I'm reaping the benefits of that now. And I think the years kind of, they kind of, undulate like that.
Yeah. And do these assignments ultimately end up getting you to that moment where it's just you and the camera and the landscape? I mean, I guess that's the whole reason you're doing it, but I can imagine with some of them, especially if it's a commercial shoot or even a filmed shoot, you have DPs, you have production people, and I mean, do you have certain shoots where you don't really get to that place that you ultimately want to get to in the sense of, the experience with you and the camera? Absolutely.
I mean, I would be lying if I say that there are not periods of time that go by where I feel like a shell of a human, just kind of clicking the shutter, being like, when's the next time I can get back into nature and whatnot. But I understand that this is a part of the process.
Yeah. Kind of leading from this idea of having big teams and crews, can you talk a little bit about this idea of working with a team, particularly with the talent that you work with, the surfers, the climbers? How important and how collaborative are those relationships? I mean, I imagine you have a team of people, or at least some people that are your go-to guys and girls. Is that the way it works with you when you need a surfer or a climber or somebody out there with you, or does that supplied for you usually?
I have a great staff at my studio in Pismo Beach. Over the years, my office has kind of undulated in size depending on if we have a gallery that's open or whatnot. And we have like 7 employees. Right. But keep in mind, like, this is all something that has very, very, very slowly grown from one, very, very part-time employee to 2 part-time employees to an intern and an employee to et cetera, et cetera. And I would say, like, there's this, it's really funny because I've had people like, oh man, I hear you don't edit any of your own photos. And I'm like, no, I don't, not anymore. Why the hell would I want to do that? My job is to be a photographer. I want to be out shooting. If I'm spending 2 to 3 weeks to a month editing my photos from the last shoot, what does that mean? I can't go out and do another job. And so what I've often tried to explain to people is that the reliance upon having an editing style that is so uniquely your own that it can't be taught to somebody else is a huge hindrance. And so for me, it's really basic. Like, our photographs are not the editing process, the post-processing is not so complicated that I can't teach it to somebody, because really my goal is to continually be shooting or speaking or on to the next thing. And that's what I'm doing. I'm on to the next job. And what I realized is that the importance of kind of building out a staff, it evolved from the idea that I was on assignment and I had a deadline I couldn't make. And so I realized I had to have somebody available to submit images. And so as I've left more and more and more, the team is usually wrapping up the next job. Like today, I'm at home taking a podcast, and the team is building a deck for a new shoot that we're doing, and they're wrapping up images from another shoot that I did. And and so this relationship, not only with the athletes but with the staff you have, is really rooted upon what are my expectations. Well, they all are fairly active people. They know the jobs that we have to do. They know that, at the drop of a hat, there might be a shoot in Tahiti that requires us all to be swimming with cameras. And those are people that are capable of doing that. Now, what I've realized is that your staff will evolve based upon what your needs are as a photographer. I've done shoots where it's like a 60-person crew and lights and grip and this and that, shooting, a Corona spot or something like that. And I hired I hired one of Annie Leibowitz's old assistants for that job because he was the best person for the job.
Right.
Now, most of the time, my in-house staff can handle everything that we throw at them, but there are occasions where it's out of their wheelhouse.
Right.
When it comes to athletes, it's honestly the byproduct of relationships I've built over time. There's people I love to work with, but it's a little bit different because when I was shooting a lot of editorial back in the day, that was like, I was working with the same couple guys over and over and over. Nowadays, if I get a chance to work with athletes, it's because they're sponsored by a company that I'm shooting for, or I'm doing a project or something like that. So I have a bunch of great working relationships, but they aren't the same people every time usually.
Taking it on that a little bit further, actually, and based on a question that John had earlier, you're talking about working and you have a vision, but you're also working with large commercial accounts. And with commercial accounts, you also get art directors, designers, the client, and you have a whole entourage. Do you rely on your staff to keep, the client like at bay so that you can do your job? Usually
in those initial creative calls, I just try to lay things out like, hey, this is the way I work. You're going to throw off my flow if you guys are constantly inundating me with questions or this or that. And what I find is that it's really the producer's job on an assignment to create that level of separation.
And your interaction with the athletes, with the talent I imagine that's kind of the most important, but there's times where you guys are, yards, hundreds of feet away and there's mountains and water between you. Do you interact a lot with them? Do you give direction a lot? And do you push them as hard as you push yourself?
I think that's one of the key things is that I try to work with athletes or assistants or crew that I know can keep up with the energy level that I have and the expectation that I have, which is like, we want to shoot until we have the shot, or we want to shoot until the light is gone, or we want to shoot until there's good light, or whatever that might be. Mm-hmm. And that is, I feel like I've kind of made a name for myself in that regard, whether good or bad, that like I work as hard as I would if I was on a personal assignment, right, or if I'm on a commercial assignment. It doesn't matter. So I think that work ethic just comes from the fact that is that this is how I know how to work. I don't really know how to work any other way. Yeah. If somebody was like, hey, it's 3 p.m. wrap time, I just don't know how to stop, really. It's probably a character flaw. So yeah.
Well, I think this gets back to something that Ellen thought about earlier. And when you start, doing your own thing and living out of your car, you got to hustle, right? I mean, and hopefully that continues as you go.
I absolutely agree. And you know what, I would say that those early experiences, hustling and living in my car and having, been below poverty level, trying to sustain a career. I really look back on those as times of strength to like pull and think about, how I know how low I know things have been, because I feel like it allows me to have a keen understanding of what I'm capable of.
Did you know you can brew beer out of brake fluid? I don't know if you tried that when you were back in the day.
It's definitely not something I've tried in the past, but that sounds interesting.
So maybe we can use that as a little jumping off point to talk a little bit about gear.
Yeah,
and maybe the evolution of the equipment you've worked with over the years. I imagine I don't know what you shoot or what I'm sure you shoot many different cameras, styles, brands, but has there been kind of go-to items and that you're really comfortable with? Maybe we can start with cameras and then we can get talking about lenses and focal lengths and things like that.
I've been using the mirrorless system for about the last 8 years. I was a really early adopter to the Sony system. Oh, yeah. Okay. Before when my editors were like, what kind of files are these? They don't even understand they couldn't even open them on their computer. Mm-hmm. It was a challenge. Like,
why'd you make that jump? What was the initial call?
It's simple. Yeah. It was just smaller. Yeah. It was just smaller. I was going on a job to Norway where I was going to be on snowmobiles, doing this assignment. And I knew that like the last thing I was going to be doing on a snowmobile while riding was like holding up a camera to my eye and like try to like jumble it around. So the fact that I could like look at a screen and know what my exposure is and fire off a couple frames. And when you're shooting inside of a big survival suit, having a big DSLR is not something that you want to dedicate energy to, or space, or heat, or anything, right? So a tiny little AP, it was like the NEX7 was one of my first cameras I bought. Right. And that thing was super badass. I loved it, right? And I used it and I realized that shortly after, I was like, whoa, the dynamic range on this thing is insane. So I was going to these places with really harsh light, and I was comparing my full frame camera to this APS-C camera, and I was like, well, this is just way better.
Yeah.
Like, this is a way better system. And I was just really impressed.
Yeah.
And I really realized that, like, the amount that I could push the files, meaning not like, saturating and this and that, but the amount of like light I could bring back out of that dynamic range was huge.
Yeah.
I was shooting that thing all the time, like never even putting it up to my eye, just looking at the back screen. And some of my favorite images were shot with that camera. And it was just so, I've always thought like the best camera is not the one you have with you. It's the one you're willing to pull out. Right? Because how often do we have like a camera in our backpack and we're not going to use it? I think that's really the evolution of that statement is for me, being able to tuck it into my jacket in these harsh, cold conditions. That was huge. I still do rely upon a lot of those, like the A6600 and some of those smaller cameras for my more expedition work, and pull out the bigger cameras.
And what would be
what
would be the factor that would, kind of decide you to take the smaller camera compared to the bigger one?
Again, it always comes down to like, are you willing to pull it out? Like if you're in a backcountry situation and you are, carrying something around on your chest or around your neck for hours and hours at a time, is that going to be uncomfortable? Yeah. Is it going to be worthwhile? And so, when I'm backpacking or when I'm like, if I'm on a trip where I'm on the water a lot, it always comes down to that. I mean, I would, on any commercial shoot, I'm going to be shooting the A7R4.
Mm-hmm.
On a commercial shoot, it's much different, right? There's no weight or size limitations. You're not really going that far, et cetera, et cetera. But if it's an editorial trip or more of an expedition or something along those lines, then, you're always having to make sacrifices. And one of the things that I never want to sacrifice is I never want to sacrifice my ease of movement, because to me, it's the most important thing is getting to the right spot, not necessarily having, the right megapixels or the perfect lens or whatever, if that's going to inhibit you from getting where you need to be.
What about, working in the cold? I mean, are there any things that you can throw our way? I'm sure you've been asked this question a lot, but, gear-related challenges with the weather, tripods, things freezing up,
and salt water,
batteries, of
course,
course.
all the good stuff.
Anything that you can throw that we wouldn't kind of expect.
I mean, dude, it's endless, right? It's an endless process of learning. One thing I always tell every photographer, I'm like, hey, you want to really know how your gear performs? Put a big, thick pair of gloves on, the thickest you can find, and then try to operate everything. Try to operate your tripod, because those are all going to be moments where you're going to be cursing at this thing. Like, why are the buttons so small? Why is this tripod so, you wanted to bring this super light tripod, but then you can't even get it open with gloves on. You're going to be freezing out there.
Yeah.
That's a huge pain. Right. And so I think too, with batteries, I've always felt like, one of the key components for me is like, I keep them close to my chest pocket, or I'll keep them in a thermos, or I'll keep a hand warmer in a little bag with the batteries, or something like that. Because it doesn't matter what kind of battery is. If there is
cold is cold.
Cold is cold, and they're going to zap the energy from them, just like your phone, right? So that's been a really big component. Like, on a lot of shoots, we've had just bags of batteries sitting in a thermos or something like that. That's really helped to keep them insulated.
I mean, I've had cameras just stop working in the temperature, and we're not even talking about sub-zero. We're talking about 20s, where the error message comes up, and I got nothing I can
what
do.
also happens quite often,
Oh,
the
that's the
LCD
worst,
could stop working. It freezes, but the camera will continue working, but you have no idea what your exposures are.
True.
Yeah.
I 100% agree. That's always been a pretty big fear. And I know that there's a lot of photographers that I kind of look up to, Ragnar Axelsson and others who have shot in Norway and Alaska and other places a lot. And they just, trying to get their pieces of advice, because, they're the ones shooting in like -40 or something like that. I don't find myself there super often, but man, is it an absolute hardship on the cameras.
Have you ever had like a total fail where the cameras just wouldn't work and you couldn't get what you wanted, and it was?
I have never, luckily, had a normal fail.
Thanks, goodness.
How about abnormal fails? You left that one open. Talk about that a little bit.
I have had a lot of cameras get doused with salt water. Like I've had salt water just hit the button and nothing else, and like just the button stops working because of corrosion.
Yeah. What do you do when you're not on assignment? Do you shoot around the house? Do you shoot your family? You must shoot your family, of course. Do you shoot with the same set of gear at home, or how's things change when it's not an assignment?
When I'm not on assignment, I barely ever pick up a camera.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I can imagine.
Okay, we're going to take a short break. We come back with more with Chris Burkard. Stay tuned.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
Okay, we are back. Chris, let me ask you a question. Can you break down how you captured that incredible photograph of that surfer surfing under the Northern Lights for the shoot? Was it Surfer Magazine in 2016? It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that's Is it the photo of the surfer under the Northern Lights?
Yeah,
is that what you're saying, surfing on the wave.
Yeah.
I mean, the basic story is that was the byproduct of, I think, incredible technology, and with the Sony A7S II coming out, and also a lot of patience and testing and sampling. It was a really amazing moment in my life, of course, but it was something where we had gone there, we had tried to shoot it once, it wasn't really successful. We went back, tried to shoot it again, and basically we had to shoot ISO 24,000.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Okay.
On a wide open f1.4 lens, I think either a 24 or a 35, and we used this really bright light, like just a flashlight on the beach, to try and illuminate the back of the wave a little bit.
Yeah, that's what we were wondering about. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And we, the main thing was to film that, right? So we were there to shoot a photograph, but it was mostly to try and film it and create footage. And we got that. And at the same time, we obviously shot this photograph, and it was truly, a remarkable feat of a marriage of technology and kind of a dream in that moment. But to be honest, it definitely took some post-processing to get the noise away and other things like that. But I mean, the Northern Lights were just as bright and just as powerful as you see, and to be able to film them in real time was so special.
And you were shooting and video and stills using the Sony A7S II, correct? It was all shot with the same camera.
Yep, we had two side by side.
Yeah, I've seen some footage of that where the two cameras are there. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
How many runs did the surfer have to take to get it, or was it just?
I mean, they surfed for a couple hours and caught as many waves as they could. The thing is like the Northern Lights, as you know, they don't just hang around. So they'd be out, they'd go away, they'd be out, they'd go away. It was really, really, really awesome.
And where did you go to photograph that?
That was in Iceland, Northern Iceland.
Okay.
Yeah, all part of that
Well,
trip.
that place is coming up a lot lately, that country. It's all you never used to hear of it. That wasn't every other day you're hearing stories about it.
It's crazy. It's pretty crazy. I think for the adventure junkie, it definitely has a lot to provide. It definitely is suffering from some over tourism in certain areas, but in many ways, it's also still so ripe for exploration. The problem is most people are just shuttled down the South Coast on the same 6-hour stretch as everybody else, which is unfortunate.
All right, why don't we jump over to this? It was somebody highlining in Joshua Tree during the supermoon, and you caught them, completely silhouetted by that moon. Can you talk a little bit about that? Was that your own idea? Was that brought to you by somebody? And
again, just my own idea. I've always been really intrigued by the concept of like marrying celestial bodies, celestial events with a photograph, and this was kind of one of those things. I've shot highlining quite a bit before, and have some good, talented friends who were highliners, and I knew this was happening, and it was the supermoon event of the season, and we went to Joshua Tree with the hopes of shooting something really unique, and it worked out. It was
I'd say so. Yeah.
Absolutely crazy, and something that it was a hard one because unlike the other one where there was a lot of planning and testing, this was sort of like, imagine running around the desert, getting like as the moon is rising with like a 600 millimeter, and if you can imagine, like this is something where the moon rises pretty quickly when you're shooting with a long lens.
Oh, yeah,
and so we're
yeah.
constantly running closer to our subject, closer. And it's been pretty amazing.
And were you in touch with the Highliner, or would you guys have any kind of communication? And you're saying, stay there?
Always. I mean, you got to have walkie-talkies.
Right.
I mean, you're not really telling them to necessarily like stay in one spot, but you are telling them to like, hey, I need you to like walk back to the middle of the line again, and can you like try and be a little more stable, a little less movement because I'm shooting slower shutter speed. I mean, the communication, I think this is what's been really nice, is that working with athletes to create an image has really translated well into the directing role of like, I'm going to direct a movie, now I want to tell my actor or my subject what to do. Yep.
Sure. No, it's important. Yeah. And you said you were shooting a 600 millimeter lens for that?
Yeah. We had a 600 mil and I think a 400 mil too.
Okay. All right. And do you remember, was it another real high ISO moment, or were you able to keep that
No,
kind
I believe this one wasn't super high ISO. I just think that we had to shoot fairly slow shutter speed at times, and then faster shutter speed at other times. It was it was a little bit of an arithmetic, and this is kind of the reason I love these experiences, because they force you to think quickly on your feet. It's a bit of like, you're scrolling the shutter one way, you're scrolling the shutter back, where you're messing with the ISO, you're running forward. It feels like you're an active participant in the photograph, and that's really special.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
That's what makes it fun. That's why we're out there. Yeah, sure. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead to two more, and then we'll let you go, Chris. But I did want to ask you about that. There's a shot of in an abandoned plane with the auroras behind them, and some incredible light, which I assume was put inside the plane. Can you talk about that shot? It's a little different from a lot of your stuff, but I thought it was pretty cool. You know what I'm referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. This was on the back end of a commercial shoot. We just had an extra day, and to be honest, it was a really interesting photograph, because the photographs are a funny thing. Usually the final image is the byproduct of a bunch of other images that lead up to it, right? So we got there, we parked the car. You used to be able to drive there, and now you have to hike like 2 miles or
now
so
they're making
to it.
you got to work for it now.
Yeah, which is great. What happened is the farmer made a road out there, and then people started driving all over the place like assholes, and then that's what happens, So people don't understand that in Iceland and many other countries, these aren't national parks, right? These aren't government funded or government protected areas. They're people's land who have allowed the general public to go and experience them. So this is private property, and the guy was just like kind of over it. So it's a bummer,
Okay. Interesting insight. Okay.
All right.
Well, that should also serve warning to people who have cameras and take liberties. Please don't. If you don't belong, don't be.
I agree. And so this was a funny one. We pulled up, we parked the car, I walked around the car, and I shot a long exposure. And I was just like, I just wanted to shoot a long exposure of the plane, because I hadn't seen any images of it at that time. And I had this crazy glow through the plane, and it was because of the car lights, right? Like there was the parking lights on. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. And I was like shooting that and shooting the Milky Way. And then I had a friend with me, and I wanted to grab a photo of him on top of it, and looking up at the Milky Way just to add a subject to it. And so that was the evolution of that image.
Mm-hmm. And did you go back a second time, or you just kind of worked it through that night?
I mean, that was it. Do you ever get a second time in those situations? It's like the northern lights are out, the Milky Way's out. The next night it was probably snowing and hailing and raining.
But they have an app for that. You can call it all up as you need it.
Actually, that reminds me. Are there any apps that you do rely on when you're checking weather and you're checking positions of stars?
Yeah, I mean, there are some really great apps that are more general, but the issue is like most of these apps are kind of taking a big pool from around the world. So for me, when I go to Iceland, I have a specific Iceland forecast.
Gotcha.
Meaning I use this website called Vedur, VEDUR.is. And that's the one that I rely on. And that one has just epic Northern Lights forecast. And so that's really what I rely upon.
Okay. And I just wanted to be clear on that. Ultimately, did you place some lights inside that plane, or that was lights from a car? I mean, the ultimate final shot. You must have
No, that was just from the lights from the car.
Oh, wow.
That works.
Okay.
Wow.
All right. It's funny because I was regarding the shot of the lights and the surfer that we spoke about earlier. I was wondering if it was car lights, but you said that you had put up some special lights to really get that glow.
Well,
on
yeah,
the back.
other one was actually somebody standing on the beach holding a flashlight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. All right. And then just the last one is probably the image that we see the most of all, which is the surfer with the volcano in the background. And if you could, again, tell us a bit about that, that'd be great. I mean, maybe technically it's not as, I don't want to say advanced, but maybe not as complicated as some of the other shots. But where is that, and who's the surfer, and how'd that shot come about?
Which image is that? Sorry.
Well, I guess the one that's on the cover of your website and the cover of the book. That's,
yeah. So yeah, I mean that's in a really special place. It's in this remote island in the Aleutian Islands. It's a stretch from Alaska to Russia.
Oh, wow.
And I was there on a magazine assignment. We were making a film, and that photograph is seemingly, it's great, it's cool, but to the average viewer, it's seemingly meaningless. To me, it's everything, because I spent the majority of my career kind of trying to prove that there was worthwhile surf in these remote places of the world. And at the time, I don't think it was very validated that there was. And this trip really kind of broke that open.
Is it fair to say that's kind of where a lot of this is coming from? I mean, personally, anyway, this drive to find places that people haven't seen and been, and obviously you're incorporating surfing, which you know so well, and is everything that's come from your career kind of seeded with this idea?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's something that connects and transcends across all my work, is this desire to show that these places are so blank and blank, they're worthwhile and exotic. And it's also a funny one, because I've expressed this to a lot of people before, is like, one of the best things you can do for photography is to go to places others have not been. So there's nothing to compare it to. And I've never really been the type of person who is the greatest technical photographer out there. I don't really care about that. I care about story, and I care about connection to place and people. And I care about the ability to show and illustrate the beauty of a location. And I think that to me, a huge part of that is the fact that, like, I'm just the one who's willing to go. I've just been the one who's willing to put in the time to research. And like this location and others, it took years of researching and planning. Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting. And quick question, do you do surf yourself, Drew? And do you still surf? So I grew up surfing, and it's just like, if you grow up in a mountain town, you ski. Yeah. The ocean to me was more like a babysitter growing up. It was just kind of like this whole like thing where I would get dropped off and have to get picked up in the end of the day. My mom would be like, have fun, here's $2, sort of thing. Yeah. It's like Alan and Coney Island, right? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, but they didn't give me the $2.
Right,
though.
you got to steal that.
They just said, look, there's plenty of pails around. You could find what to eat. Don't worry about it.
Cool. Maybe to wrap this up a little bit, what would you say, now that your career is advanced and you're doing so many things, what's the best skill that you bring to all this? Can you say that? What's your best skill? The best skill that I've what do you bring? Or the best skill that I've learned over the years? Which one? Well, that you bring to these situations? I mean, because obviously you're leading some people out there, but you also need to do your personal work. You need to kind of get in touch with the scene around you, with the nature, with your technical aspects of photography. But you're also leading a team of people. What have you found kind of stands out in your way of getting things done? What stands out? I mean, I would say that there has to be, what I've realized over the years is that it's getting burnt out is a real thing, and allowing yourself, what I've always found is if I'm going to go out on any assignment, I'm going to give 110%, which means that my creative well, or my well of inspiration, like an actual well, has to be full. Yeah. So I have to take the time to give myself the time to be inspired, to do the things I love to do. And that's really why I put the camera down when I'm home.
You have to recharge your batteries.
Yeah, I'm not constantly running around with a camera trying to shoot new photographs. And yeah, at times it bugs me. There's moments that slip by, but I also realize, my time with my kids, my time with my family, my time with my studio, my time just being out in nature, that has fueled me to a point where I know when I'm on assignment, I'm going to push harder than anybody else. And I think that's important. And I feel like if I've learned one piece of advice that might be a good ending note, is just that I've realized that you don't need to try and do everything well. No editor has ever asked that of any photographer. And if they do, that's a big warning sign. if you're trying to prove that you can shoot baby photos and landscapes and, portraiture and underwater photography, that's a terrible thing because you're spreading yourself way too thin. You need to be the best at something, be a specialist, and then build your portfolio from there. And that's what everybody that I look up to does and has done, and that's what I've aimed to do.
All right. I have one little additional question I want to throw at you. Many people discourage their children from going into their line of work. You have 2 sons. Does this rule apply? Would you kill them if they started doing what you're doing?
Oh, you know what? That's a really good question, actually. And I would say that I don't discourage my kids at all from. I've not wanted necessarily for them to do what I do, mainly because I want them to have their own thing. I want them to have their own
love.
I want them to have their sort of their whole own deal, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I fear them growing up being like a photographer and, oh, well, my dad shot this or my dad did this. And I worry about that. And that's a real concern that I have, that I want to make sure my kids, like, they know that I guess the way I've seen it is, like, when it comes to our kids, I want them to be able to teach me something different that I don't know. And so that when I'm teaching them, because you're teaching them your whole life, like, how cool will it be to have something that you can share with them and then something they can share with you? It makes them feel like equals, not like they're always trying to get your approval or they're always trying to live up to your sort of expectation. And that's kind of the way that I've always looked at it. Right?
You're a good dad. I like that. No, 2 points.
Well,
Seriously, that's the right attitude. It's the best attitude. I got it. 2 points.
Yeah, and I think it's a mindset thing. It takes some time to, like, figure that out. Like, I would honestly be honored if they wanted to pursue this craft, as I'm sure every dad would.
Yeah.
Especially if they could support us in our old age. That's the most important thing.
Heck yeah. I'm going to need it. My body's going to be broken, man.
Right. Totally.
Anything coming down the pike? Any interesting assignments coming up or projects that you're working on or want to work on?
I mean, I'll be in Boston showing my film and doing a slideshow at the beginning of November. And then I'll be at the end of this month. I'm not sure when this is releasing, but I'll also be speaking in New York City at a conference called Stocked. It's like a gear trade show thing that I'll be talking about equipment and this and that.
Okay.
That's on the 27th, so I'll be out that way in just a couple weeks here. And then I got a new book coming out in November about Iceland aerial photography and the importance of Iceland's waterways and protecting those.
Great.
So, Chris, if people want to see more of your work, what sites should they go to? What are the addresses? Instagram, websites, all that?
Yeah, I would say that the best place to find me would just be, online. If somebody wants to, be willing to Google my name, there's a billion things that'll pop up. And to be honest, like, websites are cool. I love them, but I would rather have somebody just read some cool article about a place that we've been or something like that. And there's plenty of those out there. Social media is always a great way to get like a quick snippet of like what daily life is like, But yeah, I mean, I'm out there. Website, Instagram, the whole gist, or just yeah. But I would say that to me, the importance of like real human interaction is still the most important thing. And if there's ever a chance to like hear me speak or present or teach a workshop, I'd always love to I really love that type of real human interaction. So,
well, if anybody wants to have a taste of that too, you have a lot of videos online where, again, when we were researching this show, I learned a lot about you just watching this stuff and a lot of good insights.
Rad, man. That means a lot. I'm really stoked.
Good work. I mean, and your attitude's killer. I mean, your energy level is just wonderful.
I mean,
thank you so much for joining us today, Chris. It was really a pleasure.
Absolutely, and thank you guys. And I've been a customer of B&H for literally my entire career. And
bless your heart.
Been a game changer for me. And I'm honestly like it's been an educational tool. And these podcast series are awesome. You guys do a great job, and you dive into some good stuff. And I always really appreciate people who do their research, and that means the world to me. So, cool guys. Thank you so much.
Are you still not a subscriber to our show? All you have to do is head over to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Overcast, or Spotify and sign up. It's absolutely free. And you can also find us on the B&H Explorer website, as well as the B&H Photography Podcast Facebook group. For now, on behalf of Jason, John, and myself, thank you so much for tuning in today.